Dave Roberts had come to see his player. Not as a manager executing a diplomatic obligation. Not as a representative of the Los Angeles Dodgers protecting a $700 million investment. Those explanations came later, offered by people who needed a rational framework for what was, at its core, something far simpler and far more human. Dave Roberts came because he was worried about Shohei Ohtani. And what happened next, the private conversation with Manager Ibata, the closed-door check-in with Ohtani himself, the moment that leaked out of that practice facility and spread across Japanese baseball like a wave, revealed something about the relationship between a manager and his player that no contract, no statistics, and no highlight reel can ever fully capture. To understand why Dave Roberts showing up at a Samurai Japan practice session sent shockwaves through the baseball world, you need to understand the unspoken boundaries of international baseball. The WBC is Japan's stage. Samurai Japan operates under Japanese Baseball Federation authority during this tournament. The moment a player puts on that uniform, he belongs, at least temporarily, to his nation, not his club. MLB organizations understand this. They accept it. They stay in their lane. Which is exactly why Roberts crossing that line, not aggressively, not officially, but personally, meant everything. He didn't send a medical liaison. He didn't dispatch a representative from the Dodgers front office with a clipboard and a formal inquiry. Dave Roberts booked a flight, cleared his schedule, and showed up himself. In person. Standing on the edge of a Samurai Japan practice field, watching the man he has managed through one of the most extraordinary individual seasons in baseball history go through his drills. Sources close to the team confirmed that Roberts' arrival was not coordinated in advance with the full Japanese coaching staff. Manager Ibata was informed, of course, Roberts is not the kind of man who would disrespect protocol so completely. But the broader team, the support staff, the players running drills on the far end of the field, they looked up and saw Dave Roberts standing there, and for a moment, everything stopped. One team staff member present that morning described the atmosphere simply, everyone noticed. You couldn't not notice. The conversation between Dave Roberts and Hiroshi Ibata is the kind of exchange that defines relationships between organizations. On the surface, it was a manager-to-manager discussion about a shared player's physical condition. Underneath, it was something more delicate, a Dodgers manager walking into a national team manager's space and asking, respectfully but directly, about the health of the most valuable player on planet baseball. Ibata received him warmly. Those who observed the early moments of their interaction described two men who, despite the language barrier and the organizational divide, immediately found a shared frequency. The translator worked quietly between them, but the body language, witnesses say, needed no translation. Roberts explained his concern. Ohtani's injury, the details of which have been carefully managed by both the Dodgers organization and Samurai Japan's medical team, had been weighing on him since before the tournament began. He had watched the updates from Los Angeles. He had spoken with team physicians. But there is a difference, Roberts apparently told Ibata, between receiving a medical report and seeing your player with your own eyes. Ibata listened carefully. He did not become defensive. He did not treat Roberts' presence as an intrusion. Instead, according to those familiar with the conversation, he welcomed it, recognizing that Roberts' concern was not political or organizational, but genuine. Two men who care about the same person, sitting down to talk honestly about that person's well-being. Ibata reportedly shared his own observations from the training camp, how Ohtani had been moving, how he had been managing his preparation, what the medical staff's daily assessments had shown. He was transparent in a way that surprised even Roberts, who had expected a more guarded exchange. By the end of their conversation, Roberts had what he came for. Not a guarantee. Not a clearance document. Something more valuable, an honest picture, from the man closest to Ohtani in this environment, of exactly where things stood. What happened after the Ibata conversation is the part of this story that moved fans to tears when it slowly emerged through social media accounts and teammate testimonies over the following days. Roberts crossed the practice field. Ohtani saw him coming from a distance. Those watching described Ohtani's reaction as immediate and unguarded, a rare crack in the famously composed exterior that the two-way superstar presents to the world during competition. For just a moment, before the professional mask could be repositioned, something purely personal moved across Ohtani's face. He smiled. Not the polite, media-ready smile that Ohtani deploys with the precision of a man who understands his own public image. The other smile. The one that appears when someone you trust unexpectedly shows up exactly when you needed them to. The two men embraced. What was said between them in those first moments has not been fully reported, and perhaps it doesn't need to be. The image itself, Shohei Ohtani and Dave Roberts standing together on a Samurai Japan practice field, speaking quietly, with the distance and noise of the drills creating a private bubble around them, carried its own complete meaning. Roberts spent approximately 40 minutes with Ohtani. Not 40 minutes of formal medical assessment. 40 minutes of conversation. Of the kind of communication that only exists between a player and a manager who have built genuine trust over months of shared struggle, shared victory, and the particular intimacy of a 162-game season. A Samurai Japan player who observed the exchange from across the field said, "I couldn't hear what they were saying. But watching them, it was clear this wasn't business. It was something else." The surface narrative here is simple enough for a headline: Dodgers manager checks on injured star at WBC camp. Fans react emotionally. Story filed. Move on. But that framing misses what is actually significant about Dave Roberts making this trip. Ohtani's injury situation has been handled with extraordinary care by everyone involved since its emergence. The communications have been measured. The updates have been controlled. The public messaging from both the Dodgers and Samurai Japan has struck a careful balance between honesty and protection, protecting Ohtani's focus, protecting Japan's tournament psychology, protecting the broader narrative of a campaign that the entire nation has invested deeply in. Into that carefully managed environment, Dave Roberts arrived with something that management cannot manufacture and communication strategy cannot replicate. He arrived with the credibility of someone who has actually been in the room with Ohtani, not in the theoretical sense of organizational hierarchy, but in the real sense of late-game mound visits, contract negotiations conducted with mutual respect, and the 10,000 small moments that accumulate over a season into something that resembles genuine human connection. When Roberts told Ibata he was worried about Ohtani, Ibata believed him. Not because of the Dodgers' organizational power. Because the worry was visible on Roberts' face in a way that cannot be faked. And when Ohtani saw Roberts walking toward him across that practice field, the meaning he assigned to that gesture was not calculated from a PR standpoint. It was felt. Immediately and completely. This is the thing about Ohtani that often gets buried beneath the statistical avalanche, the exit velocities and spin rates and WAR figures that have become the primary language for discussing his greatness. He is, beneath all of it, a person who pays attention to how people treat him. Who notices when someone goes out of their way. Who remembers. Dave Roberts went very far out of his way. When news of Roberts' visit began filtering out, through a teammate's social media story, through a journalist's carefully worded report, through the particular velocity that meaningful baseball moments achieve in Japan, the response was not what you might expect from a fan base processing anxiety about their hero's physical condition. It was not panic. It was not criticism of Ibata for allowing an MLB manager onto his practice field. It was not debate about the propriety of organizational crossover during an international tournament. It was gratitude. Japanese baseball fans, who have watched Ohtani carry the impossible weight of national expectation since his Nippon Ham days, responded to the image of Dave Roberts crossing that field with something close to relief. Not because his presence signaled that everything was fine medically, nobody interpreted it that way. But because it signaled that the people around Ohtani were paying attention. That he was not navigating whatever he was navigating alone. Fan messages flooded social media in the hours after the story broke. Many of them were not about baseball at all. They were about what it means to have someone show up for you when things are uncertain. About the difference between being managed and being cared for. About how rare it is, in any professional environment, to encounter a superior who treats you not as an asset but as a person. One message, shared thousands of times, read simply, "Roberts flew all that way just to look him in the eye and ask if he was okay." That's everything. To truly appreciate what Dave Roberts' visit means, you have to understand something about Shohei Ohtani's professional life that rarely surfaces in the coverage of his performance. Ohtani exists at a level of visibility and expectation that is almost incomprehensible. He is not merely a famous athlete. He is a cultural phenomenon in two countries simultaneously, the greatest player in Japanese baseball history still actively playing, and the most captivating figure in American sports at the same time. Every movement is documented. Every performance is analyzed. Every word is translated, parsed, and distributed globally within minutes. Inside that fishbowl, the number of people who interact with Ohtani simply as a human being, without agenda, without the mediation of organizational interest, is extraordinarily small. Dave Roberts, whatever their professional relationship requires of them during a 162-game season, appears to have found his way into that small group. The fact that Ohtani's face changed when he saw him coming across that field, that the composed, performance-ready exterior gave way for just a moment to something unguarded, tells you more than any post-game interview ever could. This is a person Ohtani trusts. And trust, at the level Ohtani operates, is the rarest resource of all. Dave Roberts returned to Los Angeles with what he came for, not a medical document, not a formal assessment, but the thing that only a direct conversation in a shared physical space can provide. He looked at his player. He spoke with his player. He heard, in Ohtani's own voice, where things actually stood. What Ibata took from the exchange may prove equally valuable. A manager operating under the pressure of a WBC campaign, with the weight of national expectation pressing down on every decision, was reminded in the most direct possible way that the person at the center of all that expectation is someone that people travel across the world to check on. That is not nothing. That shapes how a manager thinks about his player. How he balances the demands of tournament preparation against the needs of a human being carrying an extraordinary amount on his shoulders. For the fans who watched this story unfold, who pieced it together from fragments and photographs and second-hand accounts, the meaning was perhaps the simplest of all. Shohei Ohtani is not alone out there. And sometimes, in the middle of a tournament that feels like the weight of an entire nation, that is exactly what matters most. The game against Venezuela is still ahead. The decisions are still to be made. But on a practice field in Japan, a manager flew across the world to ask one question. And the answer, written on Ohtani's face the moment he saw who was coming toward him, said everything that needed to be said.